garble or stutter a bit because we're all really tired. But I think we should start with a really positive note, given that it was just Sunday before last we started this. Caroline started a Facebook group, and now we've got, I think, on last looking, 520 volunteers signed up. They've all gone through the steps required. We're already out in Rye and the surrounding villages. We've got 20 zones, 10 within Rye, 10 villages, as you know. We're very much already kind of getting requests and seeing to those. The main reason for tonight's talk is to ensure you're up to date on some protocols that we've put in place with the help of Anthony, Mary and the central team and other advisors, because it is paramount that we go about our lives, but certainly the work with Rye Mutual Aid in a really considered, thought out way for our safety as well as the people we're going to help. I'm not going to say too much about the steps you took to get here. I think if you're here, you're registered and you knew what had to be done. There'll be other things that we'll touch on later, and we will, if the dispatchers could stay on when we say goodbye to the volunteers at the end, then there'll be a couple of extra things we'll run through with them. I would like to just explain who the people are that are unmuted. Caroline started this whole operation with a Facebook group, and very quickly got a lot of people following it and supporting. I came in I think an hour after that, and between us we're pretty much coordination. I do a lot of kind of Facebook and website and just general support. We've got Anthony, Colonel Anthony Kimber, thank you. He's been here pretty much from the beginning, maybe a few days in, and he's really got brilliant contacts and great advice and representation as part of React, which I'm sure most of you know of. We've got Dom there as part of the central team, hosting the call. Dom, again, we just all work together and kind of help to make this thing happen, and Dom is now the person you go to for more equipment, I believe. And Mary's joining us. Mary is our public health advisor and will be working with us to kind of do some demonstrations and explain tonight what you can do to protect yourselves as we go into this unknown territory. We are going to start to just go over the general aim and the description of the group. I know we've got volunteers here who didn't join us on the last Zoom call, so we will try and be thorough but also not go on for too long. So if you, I better mention, yeah, you're chatting anyway. Because you're muted, it's probably really frustrating because you might want to say something you can't. If you've got anything, then put it in the chat. We're going to try and record, save that off, and we'll do FAQs tomorrow once we've had a chance to get through, because I'll try and pick out some of your key questions and maybe Dom can help me, but we probably won't be able to get through all of them. So if you can answer each other, that would be really helpful. Caroline, do you want to start with some of aim and description, and then we'll share this with ethical guidelines as we go through?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to be sharing my screen as I talk, so it's easier for everybody to kind of follow what we're talking about. Should I start with the workflow, Jen, do you think? First, because on the agenda, I'll share my screen and share the agenda, and then we can take it from there. Screen and share. So that's not the right page. There we go. So this is the agenda we're kind of looking at tonight. Where Jen has just done the welcome and introduction and about the team and the volunteering. Then we're going to now look at the workflow. Some of you will have seen that in the last meeting we did, but that was mainly the dispatcher that looked at it, and then we kind of posted it on our website. But it's just like one of those logic diagram, pretty simple. The most cases we believe will be a resident calling a dispatcher to start with, and then the dispatcher will try and find out if somebody else can look after that request, maybe a family member, maybe a shop in Rye or a business or a restaurant. Otherwise, then we'll accept the request, and the dispatcher will talk to his team of volunteers, and then the volunteer will come forward and say, yes, I'm able to help, or no, I'm not able to help. If we're not able to help, then we are going to pass that to the next nearest zone to see if any volunteers are available. If they are available to help, then the dispatcher goes back to the resident to tell him or her who is going to look after them, and the volunteers tries to complete the task. Is the task completed? No, then we need to think why. Maybe we tried to go to that house and he didn't answer for 3 times. Maybe then there's an issue, and then we'll have a whole protocol for that, where the volunteer will inform the dispatcher, and the dispatcher will know what to do at that point, and probably will involve informing the authorities. On the other side, it could be that there's no supply for what was asked. At that point, he can go back to his dispatcher, or the central team will help him find supplies, or otherwise we need to find alternative arrangement, and we go back to the alternative arrangement and back in the loop. And then when it's been done, he tells back his dispatcher that he's done the task, and then we mark it cross as finished. And that's it really. So it was a quick zoom in through the workflow. So the next point on the agenda is going to be the biggest one tonight, which is, this is what used to be called, if you remember last week, things go quickly, that was our essential advice document, which is now broken down in 7 documents as we learn more, in particular with the advice of Mary in terms of public health and infectious disease, and of Anthony Kimber in terms of risk assessment, and with all the advice that we've taken from everybody that got involved. So I'm just going to do the first point here, which is something we call description, aim, and ethical guidelines. So we're just a team of volunteers. Now 524 of us have just checked on SurveyMonkey, 900 on the Facebook group. So and it keeps rising. So the idea would be that we just help for shopping, collecting medication, offering friendly chats, and other sorts of services. Could be walking the dog if the person is unwell, taking their bins out, posting their mail. But first we'll encourage residents to use their existing network if they can. We've just seen the workflow. The ethical guidelines, you will have seen that we are gathering a list of offers from our local businesses and local shops and restaurants and local traders as well. And it's now all on our website. It was updated this morning at 8 o'clock by Dominic Sidwell. Thank you, Dominic, if you're there. And it's all on our website here. But we do not endorse in particular anything. We just kind of gather the list of everybody to pass this information on. We will assess if the requests are suitable. Obviously, our first priority is your safety. And by that, we mean, we want to keep our volunteers safe because they are going to be going out and about. And through them, want to keep our community safe. So this is going to be at the top. So for example, if we believe that the request that is being made is non-essential, we will not accept the request, or we will ask and encourage the resident to gather their request within like a 1-week shop instead of like a daily one. We're not going to go and get the paper every day, for example, except if for somebody that is really an essential part of their life, obviously. Health and safety, we'll talk about that in a minute. It is for you to make your own decision. There are some aggravating factors and higher risk categories, which we have listed there, which you are aware. So this is for you as a volunteer to decide, but we urge volunteers who might have any of those conditions to really consider the level of kind of, involvement they want to have. They might just want to be doing some friendly call from home if they prefer. It might be another option they can choose to take. And there's no judgment there. Everybody's important. The recipient of we've had so much positive feedback already. It's heartwarming. People saying just really how much knowing that we're there takes a huge part of the anxiety from what's happening. And only for that, it's really important what we're doing. But if a resident at any point, because they want to show their gratitude, or offering you some money or to keep the change, you cannot do that. That's not ethical. You could always send them to our crowdfunding page, and we'll use that for safety equipment. So that was the first document on ethical guidelines. The next one I'm going to quickly pass over to Mary, and she let me just introduce Mary quickly. Mary is an extremely experienced person who's worked for the World Health Organization, dealing with pandemics in different parts of the world. She's got an MSc in Public Health Infectious Disease, and she has been advising us in terms of our safety and our protocols. So, and she's also very practical, which is fantastic, because she gives advice that we can use straight away and we will use Mary's advice to take it from now on. Thank you, Mary. Mary?
I can't seem to get Mary onto audio. Mary, you don't seem to have an audio button next to your name. Anthony?
I'm just following Mary on the chat, and she's having IT problems.
Should I just read that list or come back to that later when she's better? Should I move to the next bit on the agenda, and we can always come back?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Okay. So I'm actually going to leave payment as well, because I think I need to keep payment just after her health and safety one. I'm going to move to friendly chat and mental health. We've got Simon sent his apologies. He can't be with us tonight, but he's done some fantastic work in the background. He's basically gathering information to try and create a protocol about making sure that when we do the friendly calls, we are very conscious of people with mental health difficulties or who might be going through a really difficult time, so that we give them the right advice. He's getting some advice from specialists and from experts in the area. So for now, they said the protocol is not finalized, but in the meanwhile, this is what we're going to be doing. So obviously this is mainly for dispatchers, I would say, because the dispatchers are going to be taking the call, but it's engage and respond calmly to any caller in distress, offer to get back to the caller with details of resources they could use. We've got a whole list of resources that they've gathered for us already, and offer a call back from a volunteer to discuss ways they could help. For the time being, we've actually listed the number of people of you who have got a counselling background, or are nurses, or used to speak to people who are vulnerable people. And we've got nearly 30 people, so we've got a good list to kind of start working with. And if a dispatcher is made aware of an immediate threat to life, then they need to establish first if there's a responsible adult who could take this caller to A&E, and if not, they need to call a 999. So this is our protocol for mental health. Obviously, most of the friendly calls are not going to be of that nature, and they're just going to be a chat with a granddad who's feeling a little bit on his own in the house. But we do need to have a protocol in place to be ready, really. So we're going to leave it at that, because we're going to have the final one. This is not the final one. The final one will be prepared by Simon and with us next Monday. Then, is Mary ready?
Mary, are you there?
I think so.
Mary? Jen, do you want to call her?
Sorry, guys.
I'll carry on then. I'll carry on. And then if one of you, John or Jen, you want to go and call Mary, see if we can help her. Okay, so the next one is about symptoms and central record. Obviously, I'm sure you all have heard about the symptoms of coronavirus. This is a graph that I took from the BBC, which is originally from the WHO as well. The main symptoms seems to be a fever, followed by a dry cough, and then a week later might lead to a shortness of breath. Muscle pain as well, headache as well. What's been happening in other countries, they've also been mentioning, and in the UK they're starting to as well. Quite a few people are also experiencing a loss of taste or a loss of smell. These symptoms can be mild, but then most people recover without any difficulties, without needing any treatment. 1 of 6 then becomes quite seriously ill, develop breathing difficulties, and older people and those with underlying conditions like blood pressure, heart problems, and diabetes are more likely to be developing serious illness. And if you get fever, cough, or difficulty breathing, you should seek medical attention. So that's the official advice. In terms of us as volunteers, what does that mean? It means that we have to be very aware of our own bodies. And if at any point you wake up one morning and you've got a little bit of a headache, or you're feeling a little bit achy or anything, you need to stop at that point and not join in the volunteering activities and inform your dispatcher. What they say is, what we've agreed on is if you develop symptoms or if you're declared positive, then you need to trace back your step for 7 days and inform the people that you have had contact with. You need to self-isolate for 14 days, and you need to inform the volunteers in your area, where basically you inform your dispatcher, and the dispatcher will inform the volunteers in this area. The dispatcher at that point, because you're part of our network, will then inform Mary, and we will keep a central record with the following information, so we can keep track of what's happening in Rye and surrounding area, with your name, location, and the date you started your symptom, and confirmation that you received the right advice about tracing back and self-isolating. We will apply nearly the same if somebody in your household develops symptom. So let's say your husband develops symptom, then we will ask you to self-isolate as well, and at least not take part in any volunteering activity. So we will apply the same thing. And if a resident in your area is declared positive, we would advise you to advise them to do the same, trace back their step and inform people from the last 7 days that they've met, and self-isolate for 14. But if the person is not happy to do so, or if the person suffers from either dementia or they're not in full possession of their faculties, then we would ask that you inform their GP. We've been advised that probably informing social services at this point would be very, very difficult to manage. You might be waiting for like an hour or so on the phone, and the GP should be our first port of call. Due to the nature of our help, we are in the amber category, so we are in the at-risk group, which means that we need to ask responsibly, and Mary will be, repeating that to you. And we need to keep checking the latest advice that we publish on this page. If you're feeling unwell, like we said, please do not.
We don't know, is she?
No. And
this
is also just information to finish the information on this page. It could be that as volunteer working in the community, we need to be aware that we may be asymptomatic in terms of community transmission. So some people go through COVID-19 without realizing that they've had it. So we need to think about that as well when we touch places or when we go out and about on our errands. So the current agreement is that the virus can survive up to 3 days on a hard surface, up to under 12 hours on the soft surfaces like clothing or paper, but up in the air, the droplets can be there for 3 hours, which is one of the main issues. Anthony.
Sorry, Anthony.
Just on those timings, there's brand new research from the States that indicates that the virus is remaining on and surviving on the soles of people's shoes for longer than 3 days. So hence the need to leave outdoor shoes outside, change and so forth, because it's the soles that obviously trap and the conditions are right. So I haven't read all the research, but the indication is that they're now talking about soles of shoes for up to 5 days.
Thank you very much, Anthony. We'll come back to the clothing and the shoes in a minute as well in our shopping protocol. But just to let you know that, and that will come back to that as well, but the virus survives outside the human body, and therefore anything that we touch is at risk. So if we touch shopping, then it needs to be cleaned. And so we will then discuss the handling with Mary. Is Mary with us?
Mary, I've got you up as audio, but not video. Mary, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Should I press start my flipping video?
Yes, please.
Please.
Okay, started.
Okay.
I'm ever hopeful.
Caroline, we're still. So
Yeah,
Mary, do you want to start talking?
I need to let go of that. Sorry. Yes.
Yep.
Where is the stop share? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mary, over to you.
Yeah, okay. Allow. Do you want me to start my video now, as in start now?
Yes, please. We can't see you yet.
Oh, best not do video. I told you I had a face for radio, chaps. I really meant it.
I can see Mary.
Oh, lucky you. Not quite sure what to do here now. Just look around. I'm kind of looking to anyone to confirm that they can see me. Put your hand up, maybe. I can see you. I can see one person. Hello. Yeah, waving. Okay. Wonder what else. Is there anything else I need to do, as far as you know?
But if you wanted to talk us through, Mary, your protocol from going to the shop that you sent me today, maybe.
Yeah, no worries. But can you actually see me?
Yes.
I can't see you, so not everybody can see you.
Right. Bloody hell.
Okay, well, let's talk through the protocols, and then maybe video will sort itself out, and we can do demonstrations after.
Good
Okay,
idea.
well, I'm prepared to do a bit of both, actually. So for those of you that can see me, I want to talk through putting your gloves on and off if you have gloves, okay? Now, putting gloves on is easy because your hands should be fairly clean before you do that. And you just basically pull them on. For any of you that can see me, could you just wave to see that you can see me putting the gloves on, please? Because I'm not getting any other feedback. Thank you. Now, taking them off, presuming you've been shopping for a local resident and your gloves are now dirty, you've touched items in Jempson's, you've maybe handled money, you've maybe opened various doors, etc. Assume that these hands are now contaminated, okay? And what I want you to do is to use your dominant hand, okay, to take the glove, but not touching the inside if you can. So as close as possible to the cuff. I'm hoping you can see this. Just gently flip it like that and pull it off. Get to the end, but don't completely remove the glove, okay? Then do the same with the other one. Hoping you can see this. And you can now take that off. The inside of the glove is clean, and the inside of the glove that's clean, basically. Your hands should still be fairly clean. Does that make sense for those of you that could see it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to try a mask now. For those of you that have masks, and I recognise that not everyone has a mask, but if you have a mask, there's an important way of putting it on and off. I'm just opening the packet, hence the rustling. Okay, to put a mask on, and they're all going to be slightly different, but most will have two pieces of elastic. So just place it over your head. Two pieces of elastic over the top of your head. Let me explain it properly. And then adjust to fit, you need to bring it down. Okay, and then a gentle pinch over the nose, just so that you have a close fit over your nose. The mask should fit reasonably well around your cheeks, okay, and under your eyes. Some masks will, I'm going to take the mask off for a second because you won't be able to hear me. Some masks will have one piece of elastic. If so, then that's absolutely fine. I'm going to show you how to take this particular mask off now. It's best to do it when you don't have any gloves on, actually. And according to the protocol, you should take those off outside your door because they're the most contaminated part. But for the mask, you need to be taking it off without touching the front. Obviously, I'm touching it now because I'm talking to you, but it's best not to do this with it. So assume you come in through your front door. You are wearing a mask, you want to take it off, you do this. Right, okay, so you're only touching the elastic, you drop the mask somewhere convenient, and you can take it outside to air it. I don't suggest cleaning these things. They're quite porous, and it's likely to ruin the ventilation. They're really only supposed to be used once, but we're doing the best that we can with the kit that we've got. Now, I understand that not all of you are going to have masks. That's fine, because there are things that you can use around your home that will help. Okay, there's a couple of things you shouldn't use. All right, I'm just going to hold these up. One of these is a very thin silk scarf. Now, the reason for that is that if I put it up against my face, it's almost as if I'm holding nothing there. It's going to allow far too much through, so ditch that and don't worry about that. Similarly, a sort of winter scarf, oh God, where's that gone? A winter scarf with big holes. This is also pretty useless because if I hold this up, you can see I can put my fingers through, and frankly, if my fingers can go through, several 100,000 viruses can go through as well. So don't use something like that. You can use a tea towel type thing, but not linen. Linen is quite broad weave and shouldn't be used, so don't use something like this. You need the cheaper tea towels, okay? The cheaper tea towels are the sort you get 3 for, I don't know, £5 in the market. If not, you can have your very own Che Guevara, I don't know, sort of revolutionary scarf. These are very, very good. This is doubled over. I'm going to show you how to tighten it. It's quite big, so you can fold it down at the top, okay? And then you place the double thickness over your nose. Tie once at the back, if you can still hear me.
Yeah.
Some fumbling going on here. Oh, God. Okay, quite tight. Oh. Bring it round to the front and tie it under your neck. You can then adjust it so it's reasonably comfortable. There's a lot of fabric here that's going to block stuff if you need to pop into Jepson's or you need to go to the chemist. It looks ridiculous, but frankly, we shouldn't be caring about that. It's about practicality. It's a reasonably close weave item. I'm going to show you something else that's available. Hold on. Getting it off is another matter. God. It's not terribly comfortable wearing any of this stuff, I have to say. Right, okay. If any of you ski or you've been to Arctic climates, the buff is very good in a double layer. If it's the summer one, wear it double, but it's otherwise known as a snood. I'm going to pop it on over my head. And you can adjust it a little bit. It's not perfect, but you can roll it down at the top so that you've got a slightly tighter fit over the nose. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, for those of you that can see, brilliant. Is there anything else that you want to ask me about wearing equipment?
So Mary, one of the questions is that would a bandana do?
I'm not very good with terminology, Dominic. What do you mean by a bandana? Is it one of those things that's sort of triangular shaped and you bring it up over your nose, but you'd normally wear it round your neck? Is it one of those things?
I believe so.
No, actually, I'm going to be quite tough on that because the only contact point would be along the long part of the triangle, and it's going to leave a massive flap over your cheeks and mouth. I would suggest wearing something tighter than that. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Your objective is to stop airflow coming in through your cheeks, basically, and around your eyes. And it's to contain any spittle or nose drops that you might have from passing to anyone else.
And another question is a DIY mask suitable?
Yes, if it's a reasonably close-knit fabric that's not silk. I've seen, forgive me for this, I don't know all of you, but I have seen people using bras, the actual cups, and then cutting them down to use the straps. I don't think those are going to give a close enough fit. I think they're off tying something really tightly round your face.
Hang on, I'm just checking the questions. Hang on.
Can I ask a question, Dominic?
Caroline, go for it.
Yeah, I've seen some people asking question about hair. I know that in the protocol we talk about hair, but would you like to say something about attaching hair, washing hair, covering hair?
Okay. Yeah, the point about keeping your hair tidy in something like this is really to stop two things. To stop it wafting around, let's say the chemist, if you were in there for a while and your someone coughed on you, that's the first reason. The second reason actually is far more practical. If your hair, and it's particularly if you're a woman, but also some men have long hair now, if you tie your hair back and most of it gets into the elastic band or whatever you're using, then there's far less likelihood that you're going to touch your face like you are now, Caroline. So if you imagine when you're out in Rye and there's a brisk wind and you're there with your hair as it is normally, then your hair is going to be all over your face, and your natural inclination to see where you're going is to use your hands to clear your hair from your face. So the practical thing when you're out and about is if you tie it back as if you were working on a deli counter or if you were a nurse, then it keeps it out of the way. There's less chance germs are going to brush against it and land on it, and there's less chance you're going to put your hands to your face. Whilst I'm talking about hands to face, this is something that many of us touch our faces, maybe the research varies, but 15 to 20 times an hour is not unusual. So if you have a beard, you stroke it. If you have glasses, you play with them. This is something we need to stop doing, and we need to keep our hands below our waists for the most part. And in your own home, okay, fine, do what you have to do. But when you're out, consider your hands to be contaminated. Don't put them anywhere near your face. And that's for your own protection, and it's for the protection of the residents in Rye. And in terms of the protocol generally, we've worked quite hard on this in the last few days to try and fine-tune it a bit. It's possible it might change again a little. It is very difficult to get some of these things into your head if you're not used to doing them, and I very much appreciate that. But these things are absolutely critical now. If you're wearing a mask, don't play with it. Don't ping it on and off when you're talking to people. I know I did when I was doing the video, but that was because I wanted you to hear what I was saying. But if you are wearing one out, leave it in place until you get home. It will protect you. It will stop extra coronavirus, microparticles entering your nasal passages, which is what you want to avoid to stay safe and to keep your families safe. We do have a small number of deaths in the local area. We don't want any more. The bug is definitely here, and we need to take it as seriously as we possibly can.
Mary, thank you for that. There's a question from Yasmin saying, I remember you mentioning cleaning shoe soles with bleach. Sorry if it's a silly question, as I'm not a dog owner, but what do you do after a dog walk? If I'm walking a dog for someone, what do you suggest if they are being playful and jump on you, etc., paws, etc.?
I wouldn't worry too much about the dog paws, to be fair. But your own shoes, if you only have bleach as a disinfectant, use it. But there is a reason why the government has gone on and on and on about using soap and water. And that is that the lipid layer around the virus is made up of fat. It is broken down very well with normal soap and water. And also soap and water doesn't aerosol. If you spray or clean your shoes or anything else in your home with bleach, you get the smell of bleach in your nose. And that basically means that the bleach is aerosoling, and there is a slight risk if there's COVID-19 on those items. It's actually called SARS-CoV-2. But if the virus is on those items, it's being aerosoled by the use of bleach. So I would limit the use of bleach. Wash your shoes in soap and water if you can, or use an antivirucidal or alcohol spray on your shoes. I wouldn't worry too much about the dogs. It's slightly difficult if they jump up. I wouldn't put my face down to their fur, to be honest. It is possible, if the owners have recently coughed on the dog, for you to pick up the virus from the fur if you really bury your face in the fur. But it's a long shot. If you're using good hand hygiene, you should be okay.
Mary, 2 more questions. The first one is, should you be wearing a mask the moment you leave the house all the time, or just when you go into a shop, for instance? And the second question is, can you just tell us how to clean out a glove? Because many of us will have to keep our gloves because we can't afford to just throw them away each time. So the 2 questions. Okay.
The mask thing, I think that largely depends how many people are out on the street. From a practical virus control point of view, it really should be only necessary when you're going into an area where you've got still airborne virus in still air, in particular Day Lewis in Rye, other closed shops. Jempson's is less of a risk because of the height of the ceilings. But I would still wear a mask in Jempson's, and any other small shops, maybe the health food shop, etc. Outside in the street, I don't think it's necessary if you're keeping a 2-meter distance. However, it gives a really great public health message about there being a real issue. So if anyone's being a bit slack, and they're watching out of their windows, they might take it a bit more seriously. And that's also the major advantage of wearing hazmat suits down the line. It's about ramming home the possibility of transmission. So it has a dual focus. I would definitely be covering my face in shops from now on, definitely. What was your second question? Sorry.
How to clean out gloves. How to clean gloves.
Okay, where are my gloves now? Okay, these are the gloves that we've been using, and just take them, get a bowl of warm water, doesn't have to be hot, not too hot please, because you'll melt the gloves, and a dash of washing up liquid. Give them a good swirl around, make sure that the fingers are completely extended, and then turn them the other way out, give them a good swirl. It's going to take you probably about 3 to 4 minutes to wash them properly, and then rinse them and hang them up to dry, preferably outside, and then turn them inside out after about maybe an hour, depending on what the weather's like. Don't hang them in direct sunlight. It will degrade the plastic. Don't use gel on them or any strong disinfectant. Again, the alcohol will melt the plastic. And every now and again, because we're normal and we're human, we might snag our gloves. So just hold them up to the light or the sunlight, see if there's any holes in them. Is that okay?
Thank you, Mary. We've got one more question, and then another one I want to actually add on to that is, firstly, that what is the purpose of the mask? Is it to protect the wearer, or is it to protect other people? That's the first question. And then the second question is, it has been advised that we should be wearing goggles as well. Do you want to talk more about goggles?
Okay, I can. Okay, the mask. This is slightly difficult. It depends on the type of mask you have. Okay, the one that I first put on, which is a PP3 N95, this one protects the wearer more than it protects the environment, or let's say the resident of Rye. Okay, it does have a dual role, but it mostly protects the wearer. If you go into Day Lewis Pharmacy, they're wearing surgical gloves, masks. Those don't provide any protection for them, but they stop any coughing or spray from their nose if they sneeze, say, or breathe out, going on to our medicines. So whilst we're not having close contact with our residents, our priority is to keep the volunteers safe, okay, and to stop transmission within the community, which is why I would recommend wearing a mask. It's not so much about protecting people that you're up against, because you're meant to be keeping a 2-meter distance. But if you're in Jempson's, for example, and someone comes too close to you who isn't aware, they're more likely to back off if you're wearing a mask. And also, if anyone inadvertently coughs over you, or you're in a very small room like Day Lewis Pharmacy, where there's a higher chance of getting an infected level of inspirate. In other words, there are more bugs in the air, so you're going to breathe them in, then it's a good idea to cover your face. But as I say, other items like the snood and the Sheikh of whatever this thing is, scarf, are good for short periods. You know, it's not perfect, but they're good. The problem about these is they're only meant to be used once, and we're going to be using them again, again, and again. So their efficacy is going to wane over time. Okay, so we may all wind up walking around Rye looking like the Khmer Rouge, as far as I can see, but it's probably we're dealing in an imperfect situation. You're right, I completely forgot about the goggles. The core group have ordered some goggles, I think, today. I just want to show you how to take those off and put them on. Well, you can probably work out how to put them on. You can wash. I'm using a pair of sunglasses here, okay, as a demo. But should you be using goggles, the reason that we need them is that sometimes if someone coughs near us, the spray goes into our eyes, and it's thought that we can actually contract coronavirus in that way. So a pair of wraparound goggles or sunglasses is excellent. Ones that are reasonably close fitting to your face. They don't have to be medical grade. It's just an added protection. But you'll put them on when you put on your mask when you go out. Voila. And don't forget, I've got this mask on here now. And then when you come to take them off, you remove your gloves outside the door, okay? You then use the key to get in your house with a moderately clean hand, and you then at the door remove your mask and your goggles. Again, preferably not touching the front once again, because if there is any spray or any residue, you want to avoid that. So take the side and take them off and put them with your mask for, they can be washed, you know, just with mild detergent whilst the mask's airing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Thank you. Mary, there's been one message from a volunteer saying they've come in contact with somebody who might have symptoms. Should they now be self-isolating if they suspect that they've come in contact with somebody who might have it?
I think this is very difficult, and I think it's going to come up more and more. I think it depends what that contact is. So I think, you know, was it just, how close was that contact? I think that maybe needs to be defined, and possibly not here as a group chat, but we need to establish how close was the contact, how long for, were any fomites shared, for example, a mug or a cup or papers or something like that. And no, in fact, the NHS advice is, in fact, carry on until you get symptoms. I'm not suggesting you that the individual will get symptoms, but that's the NHS advice at the moment. But I think it would be helpful to find out what the degree of contact was with this individual, and if they wanted to contact me directly, then I'd be happy for them to do so. Excuse me.
Mary, just to follow up, that actually it's been brief contact with potentially 3 different people. I mean, at what point do you decide I'm too vulnerable now?
Do you mean as a volunteer?
Yes, as a potential spreader.
Okay. That's a difficult question. If the contact was brief, it was 2 meters apart, and you were observing reasonable hand washing, they didn't cough over you, no physical contact outside maybe. If you were inside having a chat with someone, which frankly you shouldn't be at this stage of the game, I would say that's more a risk. But outside, no. And if you're keeping 2 meter distance, but again, I would suggest that the individual contacts me. I can ask them perhaps a little bit more detail about it if they're happy to do so.
Thank you. I'm mindful my microphone has got feedback. So Caroline, do you want to ask a few questions?
I can only see you, Dominic, and I can only see half of you as well. I don't know where Caroline's gone.
Caroline's muted.
Come back. Mary, should I just read that you sent earlier?
Yeah, why not? Why not? Because you've got it in front of you, and I've got you in front of me. So yeah, read it out.
Should I share it actually? Should I share the one that you sent to me?
Yeah. As long as you've got the cleaning of the keys in, absolutely
yes,
fine.
I have added it. Yeah, I have. Absolutely. Let me just share my screen, Mary.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's this one. So did you want to? Can you see it, Mary? If you want to talk through it, you're probably the best person to do that.
Okay, I can try. Okay. Oh gosh, I've just seen that the work. I don't work for WHO anymore, but anyway, I do have an MSc in public health. Yeah. Anyway, I can sort that out with you later. Okay. Just a couple of things to say about. We try and make it easy if you're picking up shopping for people. Okay. If you're driving, all right, go out and disinfect your car touch points, handle, steering wheel, indicator, seatbelt, gear stick. Don't forget the radio if you listen to that. Keep a plastic sheet in the car for placing fresh shopping on, and spray that either with an alcohol spray above 60%, or wash it down after use with detergent. Washing up liquids, absolutely fine. Okay, assemble everything you need, do it slowly and be mindful. Try not to do this sort of thing rush. It's really, really easy to just carry on with your old habits and not do stuff that's that mindfully, okay? And we've all got lots of stuff on our minds at the moment. So pop on your outdoor clothing, wash your hands. If available, put on your gloves, mask and goggles, or mask substitute, as per my excellent demonstration earlier. Head to the shop, enter the shop, try and be quick, try not to handle too many goods, steering reasonably clear of people if you possibly can. And if you happen to see anyone in there, don't stop to chat. I know it's really tempting. Wave a hand in the air, say, hi, how are you? But keep moving, okay? Just don't stand still and chat. Pay for the goods, if not prepaid, collect the goods and leave. At this point, your hands are really, really dirty. I want you to think of them as, I don't know, say you've been gardening with manure or picking up dog feces. I want you to avoid touching your face at any cost at this point, okay? Arrive at the resident's home, ring the bell, step back, bearing in mind that the bell is probably not clean because other people will have been ringing that bell, not just you, all right? Step back, allow them to answer the door, hand over the items. You've still got your gloves on at this point. I don't want you to take them off at this point. Remind them that the packages need wiping if they're plastic, or airing for 24 hours if paper. Head home, okay? Right, you're outside your front door. Remove your gloves outside the door as per my excellent technique. Step inside your home, remove mask, goggles, and any outdoor clothing that's outdoor, and your shoes preferably. Air in sunshine if possible, if clothes, well, it keeps moving. And if you can't air them outside, then just rotate them by putting on a second set and go out wearing something else the next day, okay? Because the weather's going to change at the weekend and there may not be so much sunshine around. Wash and air your gloves and goggles in gentle detergent. No hand gel, please. Washing up liquids, fine for this. Please don't do what I did and spray antiviral disinfectant all over them, because I've messed up the motherboard on my remote and it still won't work. So best use alcohol wipes for that. General advice, as we've already mentioned, try to keep your hair tied back, roll up your sleeves. The reason for this is that you can then, after you come in, you can wash your hands more thoroughly and go and do more of a surgical hand wash right up your arm. Air clothing and footwear in the sun or rotate items. Please practice not touch this, especially when out. Stroking beards, fiddling with specs, anything more unsanitary than that is obviously out. Cover eyes with goggles, nose if possible. If no mask, use the materials. I'm happy to on other things that might be suitable, because not everyone has the same stuff in the house. And hopefully we're going to have enough gloves, but we do need you to reuse your gloves, and they're perfectly safe if you washed in detergent. I would use dishwashing soap for the gloves rather than laundry detergent, because unless you're using a very mild brand, it's going to be too abrasive. Is that helpful?
It's very helpful. Very helpful. Thank you. There was another couple of things there that I might want to add about enclosed areas, but I'll come back to that when we talk about the shopping later in the next slide. Enclosed area you mentioned, didn't you? In particular, like places like pharmacies, chemists, or we should avoid because of all the droplets, etc. For the chemist, we found a solution, which is Day Lewis, which is happy to do the deliveries, and they're doing with it at the minute. Thank you, Anthony, for that information. And Boots is happy for us to just bang on the window when we go and do our collection, or shout at the door, and they will bring the prescription outside the shop, so we don't have to enter the shop. And then the recommendation is that we try per area, the dispatcher or one of the volunteers try to gather all the prescription for the day for their area, and only one person goes per day, so that we minimize the contact and it helps with social distancing. But somebody, I think it was Anthony's advice about the enclosed area, that if in Rye there's not many, but there are a few places where there's flats. In a block of flats, trying to find someone from inside this place to come and collect for you at the door outside. Or if not, wear a mask, like Mary just explained, and the gloves and the wraparound glasses and all of that. And Anthony even mentioned that really clever solution, which is, they've got a rope and a basket from the at the first level, they can do that and collect their shopping that way. But really be very conscious of entering enclosed areas. At the minute, I am not doing it anymore. And I think if I do it, I wear a mask and I make sure I'm completely covered. And that's important. And there was also a notice that we had that there are still shops with very open food that are not covered with cakes, etc. We will try and limit buying anything like that for, in particular, the elderly or anything like the at risk.
Could I say, would it be okay? I just want to say that there's very little risk if you actually ingest SARS-CoV-2, so the virus. But the problem with a lot of this uncooked food, like bread, like cakes, is that you often use your hands to eat it if it's uncooked, and then you'll touch around your face. So it's quite possible then that you could transmit it to your nasal area, to your mouth area. It's not that you're going to get it from actually swallowing the food. It's more to do with the fact that your hands are touching contaminated food and then going to your face. For example, try eating a donut without brushing crumbs from your mouth. It's almost impossible, and it's just an added risk that probably our elderly don't need. Yeah. Probably safe if you toast the bread, actually, but not everyone wants toasted fresh bread.
And Mary, what about fruit and veg that's loose? Again, that's probably quite dangerous if it's not cleaned or washed.
I think probably that's less so, unless they're going to bite straight into an apple. Maybe grapes, but I would suggest that apples and grapes and any other fruit that are eaten without being peeled or washed before consumption, they don't have to be washed in the house. If you haven't eaten that fruit and veg after about 2 days, it's going to be fine anyway. Most vegetables are cooked. Maybe loose tomatoes, loose mushrooms if they're eaten raw. You don't have to go completely mad, but most of the stuff we buy is either in plastic now, unfortunately, or it's cooked. We don't eat that much raw food as a nation. We might think we do, but we don't. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. There's no need to tell a Rye resident that's vulnerable, for example, to wash every scrap of their shopping. If they're not going to eat that cauliflower for 3 days, it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine. So don't worry about that. But I would suggest that they don't buy cake and bread that goes straight in the mouth without any other washing, because of the handling and the brushing of crumbs that you tend to have when you eat those foods with your fingers.
Mary, thank you for that. And I just want to say to all the volunteers that there are lots of chats coming in. This is being recorded, and we will go through them and get back to you if we're not doing it right now. So be patient with us. Thank you. Caroline?
Yeah, just one quick thing. I think we should mute everybody except the people speaking. There's a lot of echo.
I can hear both Caroline and Caroline, you have a heck of a lot of echo.
I'm sorry, somebody leave it.
Everybody does for me too.
Sorry. Should I move to the next bit now? Yeah.
Yeah.
So actually, what we've really tried to do, and a lot of that job was done by Anthony Kimber, was to try and gather local offers in Rye and surrounding to avoid you having to enter anywhere. So all those local offers, hopefully some of you will have seen, are on our website. So if I quickly go to the website, and this is not the right place on the website, let me, oh, I can't see because that bar is in the wrong, oh, there. Okay. Oh, am I still sharing?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So then if I go to local offers, come on. You will see that list that has been compiled has got all the pubs offering and takeaways of meals, all the shops and businesses, and in particular the supermarket. So we've got Jamesons, we've got Cost Cutters, you know, the fruiterer as well, and all of those who are doing special offers and who are doing delivery, or at least who are taking payment on the phone or online, so that we can then go and collect without having to go in. So that's very much what we're trying to recommend, that you do not handle money or checks, and try to get the resident as dispatcher to agree a way of getting their shopping through an online payment, and then we can go and help with the delivery. And some of them don't even need us. So for example, Jamesons is now working their home delivery service, and if the resident can get on that, then it's great. They can just do it by themselves and they get delivered their food. Cost Cutter, for example, if we place the order Monday to Friday 8 to 4, the manager Rebecca is happy to prepare all the shopping, put it outside if the resident has paid on the phone with her. The same for the shop in Canberra. And Anthony is looking at all of other places around Rye. And as soon as we get the new update or the new schemes, we put it on our website for the dispatchers and the volunteers to be aware, and try as much as possible to not enter shops. There's another way to get the payments. There's some very good deal as well that we are very, you know, like for example, the Hope Anchor, they do a £35 a week for a restaurant meal a day. So things like that, for residents who can afford it, we need to push that way. So we are just covering the real essential, and only for people who really need us. It can't have any other option. So if I go through the payments, so hopefully we've all got the online payment. Otherwise, it could be that we set up some contingency fund. I think one of the group has done that already. Or it could be that if people want, they can pay the volunteer via PayPal. Obviously, there's then need to be very, very careful and take pictures of that, and you have record in case there's any people complaining or potential accusation in the future. Or you can pay upfront, and maybe better using contactless, and then you may then be reimbursed by the recipient, by the resident, but then make sure again that you wash your hands when you come home, because money, Mary was saying, is one of the big vector as well, a potential risk. We need at all costs to try and avoid touching money ourselves. And then, yes, make sure that, yeah, if you touch someone, you take precaution and take a photo of the delivery if you wanted to. So I think we've covered quite a lot. We've covered going to the shop with Mary. We've done the payment and the money. We've talked about the friendly chats and how Simon Parson is going to be our main person for mental health, and he will give us a new protocol next week. We've gone through the question on what are the symptoms and what we do. Our recommendation in discussing earlier with Anthony, we were actually thinking that if someone in your household or immediate circle develops symptom, which is actually a bit the question that was on the chat earlier, our recommendation was to advise you to kind of self-isolate. So it's a bit different from what Mary said, and what Mary said is the NHS recommendation, but they don't ask you to stop. But obviously, because we are at risk, and we don't want we don't want to become the vector in Rye to carry the COVID-19 around. So we are a lot of us. We're 520 of us already. So I think it's better to be extra careful at the minute. And if you feel that you've been quite close to somebody, you've had a meal with a friend, and now they're ill, and you spent an hour chatting, so maybe it would be best to wait a little bit and see if you develop any symptoms. I see why Mary is saying that, because this is the NHS guidelines. And then, Mary?
Could I just add to that?
Yep.
There's quite a difference between coming in contact with someone who has developed symptoms, if you were in contact with them fleetingly, if you like, or maybe a few occasions, but only for a few minutes, and you were outside, to someone being in your household. If someone is in your household, you all have to self-isolate. There's no, that's not up for our discussion. You have to go into self-isolation. Oh, there's a lot of echo. But if it's just one that you've met in the course of the work that you're doing as a volunteer, that's a different matter. And you could probably continue as a volunteer, according to NHS guidelines, unless you develop symptoms, because the chances of you picking up something from that chance meeting, be it one or two, is actually quite small.
I've got David Misen who just wants to come in. David, do you want to quickly say what you wanted to say?
Yeah, sure.
Hang on, I'm going to mute people.
You got feedback.
Yeah. Yeah. David, I'm going to have to mute you, or you're going to have to turn your sound down.
Please
Right. Yep, sorry, David, I'm afraid I can't hear what you're saying there. Caroline, can I hand back over to you perhaps to wrap up, or to bring anybody else in that you want? Hang on, you're back on.
Thank you for unmuting me. Thank you. So yeah, thank you, Mary, for that. And it's actually quite reassuring to hear that. So we've gone the first 5 kind of protocol that we're going to share with you. All those protocols, based on the feedback we get tonight, we'll finalize in the morning and put on our website, and they'll be updated. Every time we update any, we'll let you know, so you make sure that you read the new one and follow the next one. This one is just one that, we just wanted to kind of, remember it. Last time, you don't shake hands, we stay 2 meters apart, we wash hands as being the best and the most efficient thing to do. As often as you can, you cover your mouth, you avoid touching your face, which is a really hard thing, but I'm trying to practice, but I'm not there yet. And you clean and disinfect frequently all the objects around your house, the object you touch, and surfaces with disinfectant. And then something else, thank you very much, Anthony, for preparing that. That will also come your way. We've got a risk assessment for our volunteers that Anthony has put together today. And obviously, the biggest one is the risk of infection. And you will see how Anthony has put here a little bit like a summary of what we've got in our protocols. So making sure that you got the mitigation in place, giving you the symptoms and what to do otherwise. And then there's the other hazard that you might encounter around Rye, but these are not directly related, but it would be nice for you to read. Please, we ask you to read those. So we've done all of that. Let me go back to the agenda. So we've now covered all those 7 documents. That, am I sharing my screen or not?
Not anymore.
Not yet.
Sorry, I thought I was sharing. I keep on forgetting. So yeah, so we've now covered those 7 documents and the workflow, and they will be accessible at all time. We can't. Just to conclude on that before we move to the next part, and I'll pass over to Jenny. We we would very much like to kind of make sure that volunteers follow that protocol that Mary, has advised us. So we make sure that we stay safe and that you stay safe and that our work is a positive contribution to the community. So we will keep in touch with you and share those again. So Jenny, if you want to take over on the communication channels.
Yeah. Close your screen, thank you.
Yes, I am trying. There you go. Thank you.
Okay, just before I move on to the next part of the agenda, Sherry down in Canberra had a good idea as to whether we could maybe produce a guideline document for the resident rather than for us volunteers, just basic steps of what they need to do with their shopping, the whole, the transaction from their side, which I think is a really good idea. It's probably not going to be as extensive as our kind of guidelines, but we could create something like that we then get out to all the volunteers that they can leave with the shopping. So it wouldn't be necessarily a mass distribution again like we've just done with the letters, but it would be basic guidelines for them receiving the shopping. So I've made a note of that, and we'll do something. Good idea, Sherry. We'll do something tomorrow, and it'll be another document for the website, but we'll get some of those printed out as well and get to all the volunteers. So communication channels, key websites quickly. Obviously, I think most of you that have got here know how to, oh, there we are. Oh. Hang on. Most of you that I've tried to share my screen, but it wasn't working, so I won't do that. But if you go on the website, there is a page called Volunteer Information. I don't know who's been on there yet. On the Volunteer Information page, is everything from the letter to residents, which is the letter we've just sent out, that's been posted through everyone's door. That is regularly updated because actually even the dispatches are changing, not so much in the last couple of days, but we've had new dispatches added, and we've had a couple that have had to step down, and Peasmarsh joined us yesterday. So the letter actually that people had through the door a few days ago is not the most recent one, but the amends have been made in each zone. So each zone has received the correct letter. But the letter there on this volunteer information page on the website will always be the most recent one, and we will update that any time a central point of contact changes for a zone. This page tomorrow, everything that we've discussed in the essential advice tonight, all the protocols, everything Mary said, tomorrow we're going to upload, we'll finalise, I don't think there's many changes to make, but that will all be uploaded to this page on the website tomorrow. We're also planning to share a video to this, so any of your volunteers or even dispatchers that couldn't join the chat tonight can go online to the website tomorrow and watch the video, maybe forward through certain bits. I will share a link to that when that page has got all the documents on. I'll share it on the Facebook page, but again, please talk amongst yourselves because I know there are a few of us that aren't on Facebook. We'll try and batch email out as well. We're trying to sort our batch email system out so that it doesn't end up in people's junk. It's another job to do. As far as other communication streams, so yeah, the website very much so. At the bottom of the volunteer information page, you'll find everything from our Survey Monkey, our crowdfunder, our central email, how to become a volunteer, the disclaimer and everything. So anyone that you don't need those so much because you'll have already completed them, but anyone you know that is interested to become a volunteer, please do just point them to our website. It should all be quite clear. Yes. Caroline?
Yeah, just a quick thing I can see in the chat. Somebody's asking, is the website the Facebook page? It isn't. Jenny's been super fast. In a couple of days, we had our own website, and the URL for the website is www.ryemutualaid.org in one word. I repeat, ryemutualaid.org. And on there, you've got how to become a volunteer with all the steps, and you've got how to find your dispatches, find your volunteers per area. You've got the volunteer information pack that Jenny is just talking about, and you've got all the local offers that please we encourage you very strongly to read, so then you can advise residents to try and direct themselves to that first before they come to us.
Yeah. And on a more central level, so offline communications, I think you probably all know what you're doing. We know we've been getting requests already, and lots of people, especially the villages, seem to have had quite a few requests in, so that's great. I think everyone is all action stations and working fine. Obviously, we are your central point of contact, so if there's anything dispatchers can't handle, please do come to us. But by now, hopefully, if you're a volunteer, you would have been added to a WhatsApp or a message thread on Facebook, or a text message. You will be in reasonably fluid communication with your other group of volunteers and your dispatcher. If there's any of you that have completed a survey and done a disclaimer, but you still haven't had confirmation, or you haven't been contacted by anyone to kind of get you to the next step, then let us know. But by now, hopefully, you're in contact with the people you need to be. Yeah, I think that's it. I'm just having a look, see if there's any other questions relating to that. Yeah, just looking at what Gary's put. There are some steps that we've kind of suggested that people, when this is more for dispatchers, so I think we'll talk about this in more detail if the dispatchers are happy to stay on for another 10 minutes. But yeah, when a request for aid comes through, there are a few filters that we've put in. Caroline mentioned this right at the beginning, that do ask them first and foremost. It's very easy. You answer the phone, you're in the middle of something, you're out and about or whatever with the kids. Yeah, I'll do that. But please do check and first just ask them if they have any friends and family or anyone nearby that they could actually get to carry out this job for them. Give them advice. Again, I'll put this on the website because there are certain kind of things that they could do to help themselves, just to limit the amount of calls. I know at the moment it's not extensive, but we have to be, proactive instead of reactive, and really be prepared for this to really increase quite quickly. So any advice we could give the residents as to how to prepare themselves as well, it was great. Yeah, so I'll share that on the website. So please do keep an eye on that. Caroline, do you think I've covered everything for C?
Yes, I just wanted to add to that actually we're going to discuss that further with the dispatchers now, but something that will be coming is potentially doing a bit of clever planning of how we use the team of volunteers. So maybe have people dedicated to a certain task, have people at frontline, so we minimize the number of people out there going everywhere, so we're not contributing to distributing COVID-19 around Rye. So we've got Mary as our advisor, which is fantastic. So we're going to work with her on what is the best way for us to organize our teams, and obviously listen to what the dispatchers have been doing, because they've already done that and already started to really be clever in the way they use their volunteers. But please, every time you've got a question, your first contact is your dispatchers, and they are a fantastic team. They've reacted very quickly each time we've needed them this week, and they will know the answer to pretty much everything. And if they don't, then we can all discuss as a team and then find a solution. Or also, because it's the start now, we are still working out things. So, for example, the idea about the mental health protocol arrived yesterday morning, and then we thought we need something there. And within a day, Simon had a meeting online with people. So please bear with us. Any idea that you see that you think, oh, they haven't really talked about that, just let us know. Let us know, and we can all work together to find who is the most appropriate person to work on that and find the best way of doing things, and then sharing the information back with you. So yes, I think the rest we will leave for your volunteer to talk to your dispatcher to talk to you.
Yeah, just a couple of things. Just seeing Patricia Randall hasn't been added to any group. You're in Rye Harbour. I've just done a really quick search in my Epic spreadsheet. You're in Rye Harbour. You've done the survey and the disclaimer, so you will have been put on the spreadsheet for Rye Harbour, which your dispatchers Claire and Katie manage. I don't know if Claire and Katie are here tonight. I think I saw Katie earlier. Maybe Katie, just get in touch with Patricia. But Patricia, every day we are updating that spreadsheet, but it's just an admin, it's a clerical thing, and it takes time. So someone will add you, and they'll be in touch soon, I'm sure. Katie, are our badges recognised by the police? And this might be something that Anthony could answer. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, if I'm unmuted, yeah. I have pushed a specimen badge to quite a few people. I need the latest version. I've not seen a full version from Caroline because Stephen Jensen wants a copy too. So if I can have the latest specimen with a bogus name on it, Mickey Mouse or something brilliant, yeah, I will then pass those out to all the 20 or so organisations I'm dealing with routinely. Could I just come in with a couple of very quick points?
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Okay, first thing is, one or two people have asked who knows about all this. Well, the short answer is a lot of people know. I spoke to our MP, the Ryan Hastings MP, Sally Ann Hart, 3 times today about various issues. I'm very keen to resolve the business of if there's any money available, about the status of volunteers. They don't get mentioned very much. Every now and again, there's a little bit of a mention, but I'd just like that to be covered. And tricky questions like what happens if a volunteer is using their car and how does that work if there's an incident and so forth. So I'm trying to resolve those sort of weighty issues, which are quite difficult to resolve, but I'm doing that through MP, local authorities, East Sussex County Council, and all the other people I deal with routinely. Badges I've mentioned, and I will make sure that those are passed widely tomorrow. The other thing is that many of you will have heard about the NHS initiative and the NHS Volunteer Army, as it's so called. That army has 4 tasks, and one of them, of course, cuts clean across the work that this group is doing, looking after community support, shopping, talking to people and so forth. And I'm therefore working with the RVS, the Royal Voluntary Service, and the NHS to make sure there's no duplication. And there are other agencies too, like the Rother Voluntary Agency and so forth. I'm trying to make sure everybody knows that mutual aid in this part of the world is up and running, and therefore we don't get duplication. And finally, I am closely in touch with the similar organisation in Hastings, which has now been subsumed partly by Hastings Borough Council. And I'm talking to them about what you're doing, and they're telling me what they're doing. And there's not a lot of difference because they're following the national mutual aid model, but we're sharing things about cost and money and passes and all the things which are coming up on Facebook and in these sort of conferences. You won't hear too much about that, but it's all going on behind the scenes. And at some stage, I will do an update, which Caroline will see, and she can then publicise that. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Anthony, for your help, and Mary as well. And I just, while you were saying that, I realised that I should probably also give an update on our relationship with all the town council, parish council really quickly. We now have Peace Marshals joined us, which is fantastic. We now have 10 groups of villages, which I think represent something like 15 or 16 villages, plus Rye Town Council. We've got financial support from confirmed from Rye Town Council and from another couple of town councils. Some of them have already given to our crowdfunding. So publicize the crowdfunding if you can as well, because we are incurring some costs at the minute because we ordered some equipment, and we will try and order more equipment in particular in the view that these will peak, and then the that will still be going out at that during the peak will have to be even better protected. Practical opinion from Mary earlier, you can use marigold washing gloves as well. It doesn't have to be those blue ones. Get a couple of pairs, wash them, get them to dry. Also, the wraparound glasses, I think that was Anthony's idea. You know, if you've got a ski goggles or anything that's wraparound, kitchen towels for now, we are trying very hard to find you the right equipment as much as possible. And that's it for my update. So just wanted to say a massive big thank you. It's a lot of information and things are moving very fast, but we have been overwhelmed by the positive attitude that everybody's having. And I think the community is really grateful to see so many of us, stepping forward and volunteering to help them. So a big thank you from us. We'll keep in touch. And if we could ask the dispatchers, Our
Yeah.
team, if all the volunteers now you're okay to go, thank you very much. But if the dispatchers could stay for another 5 minutes, literally, we're going to try and be super fast. That would be great. Thank you, and thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.